Well, good day and welcome to all, especially all of the guests that are here today. What a blessing. All of us gathered together as God's holy people, the church, the offering of the Mass this day. I ask you to keep in your prayers a family that have a member that's near death. I was called out last night to their home and to anoint someone in preparation for her death. And so please pray that this person is given a peaceful death, and also the family that's gathered in vigil around her. Please know that Father Porter is away today. He is at the Church of the Madeleine in Midtown Tulsa offering a Mass there. He's substituting. He's offering also a Mass of Thanksgiving. He was there for a year as a seminarian, and so it's his way of saying thank you to the people for their prayers and their support of him. And also, you heard many announcements before the Mass, one of them about the Knights of Columbus and the sale for smoked meat for your Super Bowl party. That's available. You can still order those after the Mass. And also to let you know concerning next Sunday, being Super Bowl Sunday, the answer is no. We're not changing the Mass schedule next Sunday, including the 5 p.m. Sunday Mass. So those of you who are ardent Chiefs or 49er fans, you're welcome to come to one of the other 3 Masses we'll be offering next weekend. Or if you've got that big Super Bowl party to go to just to watch the game like I do, it's okay. You can maybe come to a different Mass. Or I will be the priest at the 5 p.m. Mass next Sunday. And so just to let you know, I'm not putting that on Father Porter. I'll be here with those who wish to be here as well. I wonder what the weather was like that day. That day in which these fishermen at the shore of the Sea of Galilee, this big freshwater lake in the northern part of the Holy Land, and they're there in their everyday life, their everyday work, and Jesus shows up unexpected and says, "Follow me. From now on, you'll be fishing for men." I wonder what the weather's like. That's one of the questions I have. Another question I have is, what did the voice of Jesus sound like when he spoke to them for the first time? And also, why did they do it? Were they bored? Didn't have anything else going on? Was fishing really that bad? They could just take off for an extended amount of time? I mean, this is their job. This is not their hobby. And think about this with these fishermen. Sometimes I think we have an impression that the apostles were like, especially the guys from Galilee, they were like the Hicks from the sticks. I caution about that kind of understanding. Think of them rather, these guys are small business entrepreneurs. This is their livelihood. And Capernaum, there's a lot of trade that's going through this town. Lots of people, lots of traffic, lots of money to be made. So they're there and they're part of that. Lots of probably a big market for their product. Yet when they encounter Jesus and he says, "Follow me," they follow him. I wonder for how long they expected to be away. 2 weeks, 6 months, a year? I don't wonder what Simon called Peter told his wife. How long are you going to be gone? But they dropped everything and followed him. They hear that message to repent. That's what John the Baptist has been saying, and John has now been arrested, and Jesus picks up right where John left off. And that word repent, we kind of think of it often as like, well, stop doing bad stuff. And right, yeah, we should stop doing bad stuff. But that word repentance, I think, means more. It means an invitation. Jesus is inviting them to come and to be in relationship with him and with God the Father and the Spirit through him, to be in that relationship also with him and one another through him. And that's unexpected. Again, they were minding their own business, everyday life. It's not like they had in their day planner, Tuesday, 9:15 a.m., meeting with Jesus of Nazareth. Note, be sure to pick up bagels and coffee for Panera Bread. No, probably nothing like that. And also, it's happening in a place that very few people expect. This place, this district of the Gentiles, this Galilee region. And keep in mind that centuries before, this area had been overrun by the Assyrian Empire. And the Jewish people, most of them, were taken away as prisoners, never to return. The Jewish population never quite recovers from that event. So by the time of Jesus, it's partly a Jewish area, partly a non-Jewish or Gentile area, this land of Naphtali and so on. And very few people expected the Messiah to come from there, but the prophet Isaiah was one of them. That's what we hear in today's first reading. We hear Matthew tell us that. He's quoting Isaiah and that message of repent that invitation to come and follow Jesus. They're experiencing what Pope Francis refers to as the Galilee moment. That moment in Galilee when they first heard Jesus' voice, first heard them call them by name to come and follow him. No matter what else that they were thinking, I think at one point that later on they have to realize, Simon called Peter, Andrew, James, and John, that they're not going to go back to be fishermen. There's no going back to the way the life was before. They're never going to fish again, not like they had done before. And others as well. Matthew, the tax collector, he's got to get to a point where he realizes, I'm never collecting taxes again, am I? Because I've heard the voice of Jesus, and I'm following him. Others as well. One of the other apostles, Simon the Zealot. The Zealots were basically nationalist agitators wanting to overthrow, by the point of the sword, the Roman occupation. And that Simon at some point had to say, I'm never going to riot in the streets again. I'm never taking up a sword again against the Romans because I've heard the voice of Jesus and I follow him. He's had that Galilee moment. Now, I've heard of those moments as God moments. And I think most of us, particularly those who are older, have had some moment or moments, maybe plural, in which you have felt the presence of God in a profound way. In a way that you knew that now you're being called to something profound, being touched in a way of experiencing God's love, God's mercy for us through Jesus. I had one such moment many years ago when I was a young man, and for those of our younger people here, yes, I was once a young man. The hair on this head at one time was a very different color than it is today. And I had one such moment when I was in my 20s. I had a couple of moments like this, I think, that helped to propel me into at least exploring the idea of going to the seminary. But the big moment that I had was when I was in the seminary. I was at Conception Seminary College, just about 100 miles north of Kansas City. And as some of you may know, I've shared some of this with you before, my time in the seminary did not get off to a good start. From the age of 18, I'd been enjoying a growing sense of autonomy. And first, after I got out of high school, and then later on after college, and then working. And now I'm in a place in which that autonomy, a lot of it is now being restricted. I have to eat when I'm told to eat. I have to pray when I'm told to pray. I have to pray as I'm being told to pray. I have to dress in a certain way. I have to ask permission to be away on the weekend. My reaction to this kind of new life was to want to pack my bags and leave after 2 weeks. But fortunately, I had made a promise to our then Bishop Beltran that I was going to stay for a year no matter what. And I did. And then, okay, well, this isn't quite so bad. I'll come back for another year. I'm learning some good stuff. And it was in that second year I had this God moment. One evening, and this was not planned, I didn't have it on my calendar that this was going to happen. One evening, I felt an overwhelming desire to stop what I was doing, walk across campus and go to the seminary chapel, and just be before the Lord in the presence of the Eucharist. Be before the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament in the tabernacle. And I did. I knelt down, and I don't know if I was there for 20 minutes or 2 hours and 20 minutes. Time stopped. And I wasn't offering any kind of a prayer. I was just there before the Lord, and I've never felt such a presence of peace and of love. Never before and never since than I did on that one evening. That was my God moment. And I also knew that from that point onward, I could not go back to the way things had been before. They exactly know how long I was going to go forward and what was going to happen. But it was that God moment. Now, I've never had one quite like that ever since. I've had some other moments before, never quite so clear and intense. Now, I wonder why. Am I not paying attention? Am I not dialed into the right frequency, the right channel? Am I too distracted? Or maybe that's the case, or maybe it's a thing that's going to be the moment. That Galilee moment. That first time I knew for certain God's love for me in Jesus Christ. I encourage every one of you to reflect upon that these coming days, this week especially, that moment or moments you had that kind of experience. Whether you've had it once or maybe you've had it repeatedly. Some people who are mystics like Rose of Lima and others, that was their normal life. They had those experiences all the time. But I want you to reflect about that. Because in doing so, we are being called back to that moment. And that moment, once we've had it, it can't be taken away. And we sometimes have to go back to that moment to be reminded who we are, our true identity, that we are God's beloved sons and daughters. And we're living in a time, I believe, in which we need to be called back to that. Because we hear in the second reading, St. Paul writing to the Christians in Corinth, and this is a group of Christians that he himself has evangelized. He's introduced them to Jesus Christ. And now he's writing because now they've divided themselves into different factions, different groups. They're arguments themselves. And he's writing to them, he's calling them back to their true identity as God's beloved. And that's what we've got to be called back to as well, because we have been called, we've been invited to follow Jesus, to be his disciples, to be his church, and like those 4 fishermen, to be fishers of men, women, and children, to fish for souls for Christ. And if we do not have a good understanding of who we are, I think the fishing is going to be pretty poor. And I think that's what this time that we're living in, with all the scandal, with the confusion, with the difficulty, God is calling us back to that true identity. So if we reflect this week on that moment. If you haven't had one yet, well, be patient. God may not be completely done yet. That first moment in which you heard the voice of Jesus. You experienced that love. And it could have been in many different ways. Maybe it was for you an encounter with Christ in the Eucharist. Maybe it was a moment of prayer. Maybe it was the liturgy. Maybe it was something else. God's grace can work through a multitude of venues. Grace is like water. It's always going to try to find a way in. I remind myself of that when the roof leaks. Or the pipe is leaking or something like that. Reflect upon that moment with gratitude. May we know our true identity as God's beloved, his holy church.